Okay, I just couldn't resist finally featuring. I don't know why it took this long, to be honest, because it's about time he got to appear on the channel. This is, of course, one of the classics, one of the OGs from the Warcraft days through the StarCraft 2. Most people know his name if they know the RTS genre. It is, of course, Grubby, King of the Orcs, as he was once known, or shall I say the Dutchman from space, as he's proven with his experience in the StarCraft 2 realms before he retired and just went full-time to streaming, and he kills it, man. Guy gets a huge audience, and he deserves it. I love the grind, and I love the skill he shows. And his opponent has definitely been quite the grinder. I mean, David Kim here once worked for Relic, then when StarCraft 2 came out, moved across there. Incredibly skilled player. In fact, he's ranked higher on the ELO boards than Grubby, both of them around the 1500, 1600 ELO rating, which puts them in the 200 to 100 range on the leaderboards. And David Kim is an incredibly talented player. He's been playing at the high levels in StarCraft in a lot of RTSs against some of the best for a long time. The only reason, of course, he didn't compete in StarCraft 2 was because he was on the dev team, if I recall correctly. So that kind of prevented him in that regard. But it didn't stop him from pursuing his passion of just playing the game for the fun of it and just for the ability to stomp all these high-level noobs. And we'll have to see if he can do that, because it's going to be him versus Grubby, David Kim playing as the Roos up against the infamous China, which is being manned by Grubby. And you know, we've seen China. We've seen how potent they are, right? The openers are absolutely lethal right now. However, Grubby, with a slightly different approach here, hasn't opted to go for an Imperial Official yet. And I think this is to do with the way that he's chosen to prioritize on the dock, as we usually see on Ancient Spires and any map, really, with Water. You tend to go straight in for the dock as quickly as possible. You prioritize the wood line heavily. And I think as it comes to that, when you think about it that way, the reason that he's not actually putting out an Imperial Official is because he doesn't have enough people on food at the beginning. He had to walk so far to get to this place because he didn't even check behind him, right? Like, usually you're not guaranteed this in the corner, so he just went for the gamble up in the northeast, where there's almost always one, the same with the southwest. And as a result, he is going to be kind of late to get his Imperial Official, but this is acceptable given the generation, given how far you'd run. If it was a dock right next to your base, you could probably afford the Imperial Official and quickly get like the returns on the investment. But if he was to have gone an Imperial Official here, he would have had stunted food income, and he wouldn't have been able to actually keep producing villages non-stop, which is a big deal breaker at the high levels, folks. I know some of us are content to stop at like 40 villages, but you know, high-level games, you better hit those timings really quick. You better make sure that you're funneling out villages non-stop until you reach that 100, 110, 120 mark. And any break, any few seconds adding up, like idle villager, like production time, that hurts you big time in these like very skilled matchups. So David Kim, actually very late with the hunting cabin. I'm not the biggest fan of this. He might get away with it just on like the basis that he doesn't think his opponent's going to hunt the game. But he'd be wrong. You can already see that Grubby's across to this deer line. He's hunted this one in the north. And while David maybe wouldn't have gotten anything additional if he went for the scouts first, via the hunting cabin being built first, I think it's just still a solid opening to always commit to. So usually the way you do this, you have one worker run out and they immediately drop the hunting cabin. Then another worker follows out afterwards and drops the house, and then you go into like the lumber camp, or vice versa. And the reason this is important, by the way, isn't just because of scout generation. It's also because of this gold per minute, right? If you delay this by half a minute, you're missing out on that extra gold treacle, which means you might be pushed back by 20, 30 seconds on your tech up timing. Because remember, when you're playing as the Roos, it's just about like gathering enough gold to tech up and then continuing through. And as you can see, he is actually getting surplus for the initial tech up. But then the second one might be delayed by, you know, 20, 30 seconds, simply because he didn't have the hunt cabin out a little bit quicker. Small details, but it does matter in the grand scheme of things. Because when you're playing as Roos, it's all about cracking that tech up timing as fast as is possible. Or rapido, if you prefer to put it that way. Rapido is a good way of defining it. Because otherwise, like, you're not doing anything in the early ages, right? Like, Roos don't get aggressive in Feudal Age. I haven't seen a Roos player in the top 200 get aggressive in Feudal since, I'd say it's been at least 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. I'm trying to think if I count the one where we saw Jordan against Easy AI. Because the thing about Jordan, I think Jordan won, he slipped outside the 200. But also the more important detail is that he was up against Mongols, and what he was doing, it wasn't an aggressive force, it was a defensive force, right? Any player that's been grinding Roos knows it's really all about cracking that castle age timing and then getting straight into the horse archers to overwhelm your opponent. horse archers that could be counted out by what the Chinese are able to do. If Grubby has played this matchup a lot and experienced the horse archers, he knows that on the home front, at least from a defensive standpoint, Jugnu are amazing. And if you can slowly reach your opponent's base, they are lethal. The other cool thing is to play into Palace Guard on that Castle Age timing, just because horse archers don't really count up Palace Guard. You get enough of them out, they move in a decent quantity, clumped up across the map, and then they snipe out villagers because they have that 1.38 movement speed, I want to say it was. So we'll have to see if he actually opts into that, or if Grubby's just feeling like that standardized, I'm going to drop a clock tower to Castle Age, and I'm going to funnel out springald to snipe down my opponents, which of course are quite amazing against the horse archers. But I'm getting ahead of myself, right? We need to focus on the feudal. Opening is going to be as expected, the Bark and the Sun being dropped, and he will already get the notification that David is straight up into the next stage, immediately selling off that surplus wood to gather more gold, as you can see. He's dropping the wooden fortress as well. This is okay on this size of kind of like, you know, wood line, right? Like, he's going to have enough wood to keep pushing out the fishing boats. In fact, I want him to stop and move on to a new dock soon. And the more important thing is that then he's getting the additional drop-off. So this wood line becomes more valuable. Very important considering how small the wood lines are on ancient spires near your base. Can we just highlight how kind of filthy the wood line generation initially was for Grubby? If we were in more of a rush meta right now, this would actually be pure filth. It covers so much of your base, right? And even palisades on the sides. Interesting choice that we haven't seen many high-level players engage with, actually, in the early game of China. Most of them can tend to just stack their economy super close. But I think the reason he does this is because his wood line is a little bit further out, right? It's a little bit more easily exposed. And if he knows that in the coming minutes, he's going to be up against a Rus Horse Archer rush, which is the most likely outcome, I'd say it's about 80 to 90% probability that David does that, then he needs to make sure that his lines are protected. And this way, he's funneling in his opponent, right? He's blocking himself in, he's kind of walling himself in, but notice how he's funneling everything towards the Barbican and the Sun. So if it takes him an extra 3-4 minutes to reach Castle, which is insane, I don't think it'll take him that long, actually, it might at this rate, look at the numbers. Then he's at least going to be able to actually funnel the aggression into this choke point. Really important thing to highlight. And by the way, David, amazing timing coming up on this. He's almost ready to go for the Castle Age up, which is usually what we see, right? Like, if you're playing Rus as a kind of golden standard, you should aim for, like, Castle Age 9-ish minutes, 9.5 minutes is a reasonable timing. Usually, if you can push it a little bit quicker, even better. And also, David not really choosing to go for these multiple like branched areas. He will opt onto this dock now. But notice he didn't go for this one. He didn't go for the one in the south. I don't think he even looked in the south. He scouted it, but he didn't bother with it, right? Instead, he's going to prioritize keeping food production up on land by bringing in the corpses, right? Something that I don't expect Grubby to necessarily do here, right? He hasn't gone for a scout producing build. He hasn't built a stable early, so that's kind of like telling me that he's not going to play off that, which means he's going to be fully reliant on the water. And this is actually fine for China, remember, because they have that 20% increased efficiency in construction rates, right? So fishing boats should take 25 seconds. It takes them 20. So he will find his gains there, and that's why he's expanded onto 2 of these waterfronts right now. But there's no doubting the fact that David's ahead, right? You can already see that he's on his way up with the Abbey of Trinity. His income per minute is booming past his opponent. Gold looks good for David as well, and this is simply through trading. And then, of course, the wood, the food, like, it's all looking pretty healthy. And already the double archery range drop, he should be able to sustain 3 at this point. We'll see if he actually opts for a 3rd one. It might just be that he plans to, but obviously with the construction rate, there's no rush to get 3 down straight away, as you're only halfway complete with the Abbey. Grubby, I think the biggest mistake you can make right now is baiting yourself into going back for the Song Dynasty. I mean, we talked about it's not bad against Jugnu, but I feel like now maybe it's going to bait him in. Because I think I didn't really expect him to be this far behind, and that's why he's going to go straight into Clock Tower. Right? If he was more kind of ahead, right? If it was more even, if it was a different matchup, I could see him going for the Song Dynasty by going back to the Imperial Academy and then going into Jugnu. But instead, he identifies that this is what he needs. He's going to need that Stronghold Clock Tower. He is going for that Trip Rax drop, which suggests to me that he's going to be playing Palace Guard, because remember, Spearmen are pointless against the Horse Archers. Well, except the point at the end of the spear, but that point never reaches because they're too slow. And there's the confirmation. And keep in mind, Grubby will not be far behind him, because although we saw that kind of eco-booming power of Rus, the amazing thing about China is they construct everything so much quicker, as you're seeing with just 4 working very quickly to just boost up this clock tower to full health. So, David definitely has the edge. Went for 4 archery ranges. Interesting and definitely sustainable when you consider that he's got the fishing economy right now, right? On a land map where you don't have docks, you probably couldn't sustain 4 out the gate. Usually the golden number is 3 if you watch a lot of these high-level games. But yeah, 4 is definitely attainable. And he'll be able to spam out. He even has some surplus to work with right now. An income per minute should more or less support this, right? It might get a little bit dicey at points, but it's going to allow him to mass that critical number. And he's going to need it. Scouts are out early. David just getting additional value after he used them to bring in the deer carcasses, making sure he keeps eyeballs on the base and even surrounds on all sides. This is what I love about this dude. You can tell that he's been playing RTSs for years. You can tell how much he prioritizes vision, right? Just spreading out the scouts. So often we might just see a lot of players use the scouts only with the army and use them in a more kind of defensive fashion to protect your horse archers. Instead, he tries to min-max for vision, does lose one of them, but gets the typically top info that his opponent has got into Palace Guard and Springalds, and this is where you need to pivot. I don't like the idea of just spamming horse archers alone up against the Palace Guard. Arguably, you could get enough that it could work, but I think Palace Guard, to me, they'll definitely close rank eventually because 1.38 compared to 1.62 means you move quicker, but every time you stop the fire, it's gap closing, right? And when they're backed up by Springalds, it gets a little bit wonky. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see David go into a Siege Workshop here. Like, that could be the play. Yep, there it is. So it's going to be in the Springalds. And if this ever goes later than Castle Age, then David has the advantage because, of course, he has that unique tech upgrade that gives his Springald plus 1.5 tile range. He's going to need it. I wonder if he can, like... I think he wants to get to a stage where he can support 2 Siege Workshops. And the reasoning is because he's up against a clock tower, right? Not only a building that can produce 3 times as quickly with the overseeing of the Imperial Official, but one that also the units that come out have 50% more health. Engagement. Horse Archer is being chased down, and this was my concern. You can see the Springalds just taking control of this. And it means he's going to lose his fishing economy. And remember, David, right now, he's able to sustain output from 4 archery ranges courtesy of this fishing economy. If he loses that, he loses the ability to keep churning out these units from all 4 of the buildings. They'll just have to back up. And they'll get sunk fast, remember. Like, it's 60 damage per shot. No ranged armor, which means it's 3 shots from Springalds to kill each of these fishing boats. I just don't think Grubby's noticed yet. No, he hasn't seen it. So he's moved up here, but he didn't quite scout out what was happening. Now, Horse Archers have regrouped for David. Springalds are slow to move around, so if Grubby splits up his force like this, he has to back away and he knows it. But there you go, he'll move in now. He does spot what he wants. And all you can do as David is bank as quickly as you can before you lose the ships, but you know they're going down the next minute. There's not really a great way to protect them because even if you're building Springalds from the 2 Siege Workshops like we want to see, it does take ages to reach that area of the map from base. So instead, David does the wise thing here. Really, you don't want to actually be directly attacking Grubby right now. So if you can just chase down the stragglers as they trickle in and maybe make your way towards his economy, you can put a big dent into his to even up what he just done to your fishing economy. We'll see how far it goes with it, though. Like, at the moment, he's just chasing the Palace Guard, and this is really decent damage, actually. Because they're outnumbered, right? That's the difference. We said when you actually have equal numbers, the Palace Guard can close gap on you, and the Springalds will pressure you. But like this, it's just Grubby losing troops. He did at least drag them down to the south to allow more to funnel out. And this means he will now be covered to burn up the docks. And although he does lose, what was that, like 6, 7, maybe 8 of his Palace Guard, it's definitely a worthwhile trade because look at the dent that David's income has now taken. Grubby's ahead of him in that regard. David is ahead on wood, but that's it. Everything else is looking healthy for Grubby. And Grubby, I mean, he's in a situation where at this rate, if he wanted, he could actually go for another TC. I wouldn't be surprised to see it either. He's only had 1 person working on the stone line, but it's definitely a heads-up play. He just needs to be careful with this Horse Archer army prowling about. This Horse Archer army that's about to return the favor and take out his fishing economy. Something that he's not prepared for either. Like, look at the positioning. He's so far away, he's going to lose several of these. And there's only 1 dock here, so he can't really protect many. David. Every punishment given is returned. And Grubby, nowhere he can move quick enough to cut this off. So you'll see he makes the other choice, pushes towards David's base. David is rebuilding in his base, has a few Springalds here, a few Horse Archers as well. Scouts just keeping eyeballs on the south side. Yes, a dent put into Grubby. He needed to slow this down, and it means that now they've kind of like evened each other out blow for blow, right? But now you're exposed. 7 Springalds here. Only 4. He needs to wait for the Horse Archer army to come back, and it's going to take a long time. Even at 1.62 movement speed per tile. Sorry. I should start saying per second, right? To be clear for people. It's per second you move 1.62 tiles. It's still going to take ages to move back. And you can see that, right? And what's Grubby doing? Setting up a forward base. Not really a, you know, we're going to produce units out of here necessarily. It's just more of, like, he could, in fairness. But it's more about a, like, yo, we're the Romans coming through. We're in Gaul. We're going to set up an encampment here. It's just that kind of element, right? He wants to control around with walls, create that fallback point to hide behind, because he's going to need it. And mistakes made. Springald line is exposed. Palace Guard need to retreat. So do the Springalds. One of them's going to fall. Second one soon to follow. And the Palace Guard are being forced to engage. Springald's just trying to get shots off as they retreat. The scout with the carcass. I don't know, man. Maybe if you throw the deer at them, you'll kill them quicker. And instead, Horse Archer's dealing with the Palace Guard as they move through. Need to be careful because the Springald's getting ready to turn around. He needs to get these volleys out quickly because he can sink 2, maybe 3 more of these Springals before they get back to safety. And you see the wall lines now go down from Grubby to try and protect him. He's definitely going to lose a few of these. And that's costly for Grubby. Remember, after he just took that huge dent into his food eco, his wood situation is all he had going for him. So he wanted to keep the Springal numbers in his favor, and it won't be that way anymore. Nesta Beast might scare off David, but David's still staying on top of him, pressuring. And he snipes out villagers as well. Grubby sacrifices some economy to get these walls down. They'll be permanently sacrificed as he gets a few of them sniped out. Palace Guard's still trading unfavorably here. And despite that, what we said about how great the Palace Guard can be, we're starting to see where they falter, right? Whenever you're put on the back foot, when you have to retreat, your Springals can't move away quick enough. Your Palace Guard are trickling in, right? Like, the only time I felt like this was good was when Grubby initially came in. He had that bulk advantage and he kept the numbers. As soon as he engaged on a front where he was outnumbered, we saw how quickly it turned, right? And now, all of a sudden, David is the one who has his hand around Grubby's throat. So Grubby needs a new plan. Should just be continuing to produce the Springals, if he can. Suffering on the wood front right now. That's why he's pushed everyone over to this side now. He exposed through this line. There's not many wood left there. He wants to play somewhere safer, further away from the Horse Archers. And that rebuilt fishing economy is going to be sniped once more. Never spotted the one on the backside of Grubby's base, though. So Grubby's definitely still getting income there. I say that. Look at the wrap. This is going to find 2 things at once. 2 important eco lines. The food line and the wood line. Wood line might be able to retreat. David runs straight through the base. Kind of pinch him around the back. And this outpost was never upgraded either. So he's going to warm himself in. Nice play. Grubby looks like he's going to protect himself. But remember, these Horse Archers can fire over. And they are in. Imperial Official first to be sniped out. 150 food wasted. And they almost, with each volley, take down a villager. The villager is going to be forced to engage here. You're still going to lose a few for your trouble. And more of these Horse Archers can move in range to support this. So while you will eventually kill the Horse Archers, the dent is becoming quite the big bludgeoning in the side of the ship that Grubby's manning here, right? Like David currently up at 56 on the eco, now Grubby at 53. And some of this is still fishing ships, yes. But those fishing ships might still get sniped out in the meantime. And Sacred Site's now capped. So David just starting to strangle Grubby out of this game. And Grubby, time is of the essence. Another TC to be dropped. I don't know if this was the play. He needed something though, right? And the problem is that David, look, he now has the required amount to go in page. And this is where it just might be that Grubby gives up, right? He's pinned in his base. Sacred Sites are being capped against him. He has moved to force out to decap 1, but right now he's reactionary and he's very static. And he's struggling to deal with what David is doing is once again, he goes in and finds the wood line. Oh, he's going to lose so many villagers here. He did finally upgrade the outpost, but David just doesn't care. He's getting his value and then some out of this small group of Horse Archers. The Raiders will succeed in sniping out several villagers before being noticed. Might even find an Imp official. Yeah, they do. The Imperial official should be targeting a sec, but at the moment he's working on the lumber camp, so looks like he'll get away with murder there. Really important detail that he didn't snipe that out, by the way. Another Imperial official down gets really frustrating, right? When you look at Grubby's economy, he's very hard capped on food right now. Having to sacrifice another 150 to replace that critical unit is pain at this stage. And the problem is that he's running out of things to gather, right? He's still got these berry bushes, but as soon as the fishing's gone, like, you're kind of screwed. They all got sunk in the end because he already drained this lake. He can't get out on this one at all. He is suffering because he hasn't moved to the other lake. So once this berry bush line is gone, he's lost all of his safe economy. He'll then have to transition into the farms. And that's a problem when you consider how much of his resources are currently going into the siege line, right? All of his wood is just invested directly into Springalds and Nesta Bees. A mistake being made by David. That's a relic. All right. He's going to lose it. Horse Archer's on the way out now, at least. Trying to snipe out Pain. He did split up his Horse Archers into 2 groups, and they haven't been healed in a while. And this is 5 Nest of Bees, so Grubby could actually wipe this contingent in one burst. Let's see if he actually pulls it off. Wrapping rounds. David? Does he know? Shots coming in, and the damage is big. Half of them already gone. Trying to back away. It looks like it's the 5th of July. Fireworks Day, baby. Only 5 of them left as they'll retreat. Meanwhile, on the base, David, he says, okay, time to avenge my lads. You take out a few of my Horse Archers, I'll take out several of your villagers. And once again, the dent, David up to 64 eco, Grubby down to 43. It's death by 1,000 cuts or death by 1,000 villager deaths at this point. One by one, the arrows reign supreme, and there's just no answer for him. Grubby's still playing static, right? He never went into stables. He definitely doesn't have the food economy inside his base now to support a stable transition. So he's kind of just in on this, and it either works or you lose. And the problem is I don't see a world in which you get into David's base before he annihilates yours, right? Like, he won't be able to siege your buildings, but he'll kill everything. He'll stun all your growth. Your economy will be dead, and then you can just rebuild his. Nice evasion. Keeping away from the Nest of Bees. And look at the amount of springalds David's been building. And it's been so long since Grubby saw the springald line. He's not going to expect this. And once you lose the Nest of Bees, this just might be over. Springald shots in. Starting to prioritize them. Splits them up into micro groups, get through them quicker. Nest of Bees, decent damage done onto the springalds, but barely any of them left. And with so many Horse Archers and so few Spearmen, I think this is the moment where Grubby realizes he is outmatched. What an amazing way for David to play this. Skirting the map, sniping out the economy, and keeping this top secret until the final battle. The battle that will decide it as Grubby will tap out and call the GG.